10 a.m., December the 1st, 2022. And welcome everyone to the Board of Regents meeting. As chairman of the board, I'd now like to call this meeting to order. For those of you who will be joining us today, I don't think we have anybody remotely today, do we? So, the first item listed on your agenda today is item 2, open forum. It should be noted that no one has signed up for open forum today, so we'll move on to the next item listed on your agenda. Item 3, approval of the minutes from the following meeting, August 25th, 2022 Board of Regents meeting. Has everybody reviewed those?
Yes.
I know y'all been looking at them the last 15 minutes, so if there are any corrections to these? If there are no corrections to these, might I hear a motion to approve the minutes as distributed?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries and these minutes are hereby approved. The next item to be addressed from our agenda today is a presentation by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Chair on 2022 to 2030 strategic plan, building a talent-strong Texas. Dr. Fred, pronounce your name for me.
Farias.
Farias. Okay. I've always been chopped up, so I just want to make sure I always pronounce it. He's chair of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. Would you please present your remarks, sir?
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chairman and Regents. First of all, I want to thank you all for your service to the state and all that you do for the state of Texas, the students, and your service to this great state in higher education. My name is Dr. Fred Farias, and I have the honor of serving as the chairman of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. This morning, I'd like to share with you our exciting new statewide strategic plan for higher education titled Building a Talent-Strong Texas. Let's start with the context about Talent-Strong Texas and how it was developed. Texas has the 9th largest economy in the world. Over the last decade, Texas has earned more degrees and certificates and credentials than any other time in history. We've outpaced every other state in growing our undergraduate and graduate student enrollments. However, the pace of change in Texas' economy is accelerating, and the COVID-19 pandemic brought new disruptions to the workforce and changing expectations for the future. Now more than ever, a growing number of jobs require credentials beyond high school diplomas. To keep pace with this constant change in our economy, we also need to upskill and reskill a large portion of our workforce to be able to respond to the needs of our employers. In response to these changes, the board and Commissioner Keller determined that 60 by 30 Texas, our previous strategic plan, should be refreshed and that Texas should accelerate its national leadership and renowned focus on students completing degrees with purpose and value. In 2021, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, in partnership with the Texas Higher Education Foundation, launched a project to update our strategic plan. Stakeholders engaged was a major cornerstone of the process in developing a Talent-Strong Texas plan. We held 10 virtual sessions across Texas, each session jointly by your university and community college and Chamber of Commerce's in each region. In total, we connected with hundreds of employers, higher education leaders, policymakers, and other stakeholders, but through these sessions and others, more focused discussions came about. We engaged leading state and national experts, and we polled the public to better understand these differences in the audiences and the needs that we expect from Texas colleges and universities. After working to integrate what we learned during stakeholder engagements, a new strategic plan was developed and approved by our board in January of 2022. The new plan is Building a Talent-Strong Texas, It's not just an update on the 60 by 30 plan, but a broader, market-driven vision that raises the bar for Texas higher education. The plan includes 3 primary goals and pillars. First, attainment of post-secondary credentials for all working-age Texans. Second, a focus on post-secondary credentials of value. Third, strengthening of research, development, and innovation. Across these goals, the plan places an intentional emphasis on equity. Texas is one of the youngest and most diverse states in the nation. So if you're not advancing our goals equitably, then we will not achieve them. The plan also elevates the importance of cross-sector collaboration. To reach goals, we'll need to work closely with the public and private sector stakeholders to break down historic silos and engage educators, institutional leaders, policymakers, employers, and students in a more meaningful way. First, our new strategic plan widens the lens on who we're committed to serving through our colleges and universities. We still have the 60 by 30 goal for young working adults ages 25 to 34, but we're also raising the bar to also include a goal of 60% of working adults ages 35 to 64 with a degree, certificate, or other post-secondary credential by 2030. This group includes a range of potential adult learners, like those who have never had the opportunity to attend college after high school, or the nearly 4 million Texans with some college credit but no credential. We also have to expand our focus to include mid-career employees who need additional skills to advance in their jobs and to meet the challenging demands of Texas employers. We're also expanding the types of credentials that will be counted beyond just degrees and certificates to include other types of credentials with demonstrated value in the labor market. This could include industry-based certifications, stackable micro-credentials, credentials awarded through continuing and executive education, and other credentials that our institutions are working today that weren't currently captured and included. With regard to the first population, the 25 by 30-year-olds, in 2019, the most recent year we have of data, 48.2% held credentials. And of our 35 to 64-year-olds, 47.7% held credentials. This, by the way, includes certification data that we were able to work with Georgetown Center for Education and Workforce to incorporate. By expanding our attainment goal to include working-age Texans and including more types of credentials, we will increase employment opportunities and incomes for individuals, create a deeper talent pool for our employers, and align skills with the jobs that our economy demands. Second, we're broadening the scope of credentials we're considering. The new plan includes short-term and industry-related credentials, even skilled apprenticeships. Most importantly, we're putting an important marker down on all these credentials that they should be credentials of value, meaning that they translate into positive earnings for students and families. In other words, within 10 years, has the credential you earned provided you the opportunity to earn more than you would have you gone straight into the workforce after high school? This is a question we always get asked. And think about it, when students are trying to decide whether they're going to go straight out of high school to college or they're going to go into college, this is important decisions that they have to make. To calculate the statewide measure of completion of credentials of value, we are examining whether the typical student in a program, given a typical cost and typical earnings for that credential, is earning that typical high school graduate within 10 years. If yes, then that's a credential level by program is considered a credential of value. For the purposes of this measure, and all the graduates of that program across all public institutions, and accounted towards the statewide total. Think of it as a potential value as this credential can deliver given typical costs and typical earnings. It also important to emphasize the basic building of Talent Strong Texas plan is market driven. Texas is the first state to condition our goals for producing higher education credentials on earnings and to emphasize return on investment for students and employers. We've set a goal of producing 550,000 credentials of value by the year 2030. The good news is that the typical student across all certificates, associates, and bachelor's degree programs that are currently captured from our public institutions, they all meet this threshold, and therefore all the graduates could count towards the statewide total for this goal. So for our baseline year of 2019, we had 347,669 completions credentials of value. At the same time, it is important to note that this is going to look differently when we start to look at by institution and by student demographics. Another important component is the commitment of credentials of value concerning student debt. Our new goal is that by 2030, 95% of Texas students should be able to complete their undergraduate credentials with no or manageable debt, with manageable debt being that is someone who could reasonably repay within 10 years given typical earnings for that credential. Here we find that in 2019, our baseline is 94% of students having completed with no or manageable debt. Again, it's important to keep in mind that this is going to look differently when we break it down to various types of credentials, various programs, by institutions and by student demographics. But at the end of the day, however, we're talking about just over 8,000 students graduating with high debt, which is a number we can get our arms around and work closely with institutions to address. Students and their families need to know whether students can take on more debt than they should. Keeping higher education affordable and debt low must be a shared responsibility amongst policymakers, higher education institutions, and students themselves. And this new metric will provide much clearer guidance. Our previous plan was entirely silent on research and development mission, which is striking given the research and development play in our economy and the priority that the governor and the legislature have placed on it. The new plan will also include broad goals to promote research and development. We've included new goals to increase annual private and federal sponsored research by $1 billion a year, and to increase our production of research doctorates to 7,500 a year, which is an important metric for the strength of our university research programs. In our baseline year of 2020, for the first measure focused on research expenditures, we were at $3.5 billion. With a goal of increasing it by $1 billion by 2030, that puts our goal at $4.5 billion in the private and federal research expenditures. For our research doctoral graduate goal of 7,500 for our baseline year of 2020, we had 5,458 graduates. By investing in hands-on learning environments, incubators, makerspaces, software development labs, and strategic partnerships across all types of institutions, students can generate the knowledge through applied research that will drive innovations and economic development. We've already focused on operationalizing the new plan and making sure the organization of our agency and major programs align with our goals. If you're interested in more details, the strategic plan is available on the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board website. In addition, we are also releasing more resources through the winter and spring. These would include a more detailed document, technical guideline with methodology, information related to the indicators we've talked about, and data dashboards that will capture baseline information at a more granular level. I do appreciate the time. Thank you, Chancellor, Chairman, and Board of Regents for the University of Houston system. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and present the Building a Talent Strong Texas plan for higher education in our great state of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I hope you've enjoyed your stay. I'm sure as you visit, how many universities have you visited so far this year?
Universities, I have personally, my plan is to visit all the University of Systems, Board of Regents, and I got back, and by the way, congratulations on the medical school here, Chancellor Couture and Dr. Spann, and I have been working on that for many years. I missed the chance, Chairman. I had another commitment when we did the opening, so congratulations and thank you for your family's gift. And also, so I recently visited all the schools that we've approved since I've been on the board. And by the way, I must mention there were a couple of your board members here, past board members of the coordinating board, and we have your past chairman of the Board of Regents is now
Yes.
on the coordinating board, Mr. Wilson. But to answer your question is, as time approves, I've been to, since I've been on the board since 2015 and the Governor Abbott appointed me as chair on June of 2021, I've been to like 3 medical schools and trying to get to different campuses. But I think it's important to visit with leadership. So I talked to just every chancellor and just about every president of universities around the state. With Zoom and all in the pandemic, of course, it was hard to get to locations. So now I'm traveling again, and so as many as we can get to.
Does anybody have any questions?
I just had one question, Mr. Chairman. What, the 60% goal, how does that stack up to other states? Where are we relative to a competitive landscape?
We're actually very competitive, and not a lot of data exists on that. That's a very good question. As Chancellor Couture knows, we are way up there and as far as higher education accessibility and affordability compared to other states. There's 2 states that come to mind that, that definitely have. Massachusetts is a strong state, and as far as education, as far as the amount of population citizens that obtain post-secondary education. But we are up there at the top, and all the work that y'all are doing and all the other systems are doing, providing opportunity continues to grow in Texas. As you know, our populations continue to grow, so obviously we need to provide more opportunities, and that's really our goal. But not only to provide access, affordability, but also to be able to provide programs that will meet the needs of the graduates to be able to get good jobs and meet workforce for our employers. So these sessions that we had around the state with the Chamber of Commerce's, with universities, inviting key stakeholders, was really a listening tour around this whole entire state to listen to what the needs are from economic development and to see how we can provide programs, because as you know, the coordinating board approves programs, right? Whether it's PhD, masters, any program that any university or system brings forward, and that's a major goal of the coordinating board.
I think there are like 12 states in the union that have a higher percentage than the state of Texas. Massachusetts and New Jersey lead the country.
Is the highest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So why do you think so many politicians and people are saying that going to college today is a waste of money, where we all know that it is not? But it's a real political hotbed today, that why waste the money to get a higher education? Well, we all know if you have a diploma, you make more money.
Right. So I think collectively we all need to do a better job marketing and letting people know. But you're exactly right, Chairman. There is that perception, because we know the data is there, that if you have a bachelor's degree or higher degree, your potential earnings are higher. So we know that, the data shows that. But like in any other, like you say, political hotbed, you get these stories and things that, so we all need to do a better job in letting the data out there to say, yes, you're correct. A degree in the long run will get you a better income and a better job and a better contribution to the economy of our state.
And the second biggest myth has been that the cost of tuition has grown so high, while if you look at it, even if you look for last 10 years, the cost of inflation has been higher than the cost of tuition. The problem is not cost of tuition, the problem is the widening gap between people's ability to pay and cost of education. And economy is not growing at the same pace where people feel a squeeze. It's just in fashion to do that, but I plead, Mr. Chairman, I plead every single opportunity I get for people who have any influence to stop building that narrative that whether college is worth, because our children, our grandchildren are going to college, no questions asked, but it's the people whose life can be transformed the most are being hurt the most, because they are on the fence and they are debating and thinking, should I or should I not? And they are making wrong decisions. So many colleges like us, we provide free education for so many students. The board passed here for anybody with the family income of 65,000 or less,
Yeah.
there's no cost of tuition and fees. I mean, it's free education.
Well, no, I agree, and that's where I think overall in the state, we need to do a better job of communicating that, because the people that want to get an education can get an education. But yes, I agree with that, Chancellor.
Well, thank you.
May I
And-
make
and-
just a comment? May I, please? I just wanted to, on behalf of the University of Houston system and our 76,000 students, I wanted to thank you because you have been a steadfast friend of the University of Houston system, shepherding us through so many initiatives we have had, easy ones, difficult ones, impossible ones. And since you've been chair, I know, I mean, it's incredible your communication and your interest in what we do here. So I wanted to just say it here, thank you from all of us.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, definitely. You've definitely been a friend. So thank you for your short, impactful, concise presentation. We appreciate that very much. We truly do. The next item to be addressed from our agenda today is a presentation by University of Houston Faculty Senate President, the proposed Enhanced Performance Evaluation Policy. Dr. Shattuck, Faculty Senate President, will you please present your remarks?
Thank you, and good morning. Good morning. As he just said, my name is Dave Shattuck. I'm the president of the University of Houston Faculty Senate. To make the best use of your time, let me go straight to my message for you today. I'd like to speak in support of the proposed post-tenure review policy, also known as Enhanced Performance Evaluation Policy, or EPE. This is a revision, really a complete overhaul of our existing review of faculty with tenure, a policy that will come before you today. I'm speaking in favor of this policy, which comes with the unanimous endorsement of the Executive Committee of the Faculty Senate. This doesn't mean that every faculty member supports this new policy, because a few do not. However, I want to point out that this policy was developed with close collaboration between the Provost's Office and the Faculty Affairs Committee of the Faculty Senate over a period of years. Many changes were specifically requested by the faculty senators, and many of those changes were made in the policy. It's fair to say that this has been an effective example of shared governance, where upper administration took significant input from the faculty groups in the process of developing important policies. Now, why are faculty supporting an evaluation process that could possibly put themselves at risk, at least in the worst possible scenario of the policy? And my answer would be that faculty recognize that we must all be accountable, even after earning tenure. Accountable, and we must continue to work and work hard. Hand in hand with the need for academic freedom comes the responsibility to teach effectively, to perform excellent research, make meaningful scholarly advancements for the good of our students, for the taxpayers, and for society as a whole. We believe that holding tenured faculty accountable supports tenure in the way tenure is intended to operate and function. This is why the Executive Committee and I endorse this policy. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Any questions? Did somebody give everybody a time limit today? Usually I do that. I mean, I even want more. I usually don't. Great job, sir. This item was presented for information only. No further board action is required. Section 3 is next on your agenda, the committee reports, which list the board's consent docket agenda items. These items have been considered and unanimously approved at each of our board committee meetings, which were held yesterday. Pursuant to Board Bylaw 6.9, any regent may request that an individual item be removed from the board's consent docket agenda and addressed by the full board. I'd now like to ask the chair of each of these committees to present their respective reports. Our first committee report will be addressed by the chair of the Endowment Management Committee, Regent Beth Madison. Regent Madison, present your report,
Thank you,
please.
Mr. Chairman. The Endowment Management Committee meeting was held yesterday, November the 30th, 2022, and unanimously approved the following item for submission to the board's consent docket agenda for final board approval today as follows. 1, approval is requested for the annual review of the University of Houston System Board of Regents Endowment Management Committee Charter. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my committee report.
Thank you so much, Regent Madison. Our next committee report will be addressed by Regent Jack Moore, who is the chair of the Audit and Compliance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Audit and Compliance Committee met yesterday, November 30th, 2022, and there were no items brought forward today for the committee requiring final board approval.
Thank you, Regent Moore. The next committee report will be addressed by Regent Durga Agarwal, chair of the Academic and Student Success Committee. Regent, please present your committee report, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. The Academic and Student Success Committee met yesterday, November 30, 2022, and unanimously approved the following action item for the submission on the board consent docket agenda for final board approval today as follows. Approval of University of Houston faculty post tenure review policy. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next committee report will be given by Regent Doug Brooks, chair of the Facilities Construction and Master Planning Committee. Regent Brooks, please provide the board with your committee report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Facilities Construction and Master Planning Committee met yesterday, November 30th, 2022. We unanimously approved the following action item for submission on the board's consent docket agenda for final board approval today as follows. 1, approval is requested for the annual review of the University of Houston System Board of Regents Facilities, Construction and Master Planning Committee Charter. 2, approval is requested of the annual update to the University of Houston Downtown Master Plan. And 3, approval is requested of the annual update to the University of Houston Clear Lake Master Plan. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my committee report.
Thank you, Regent Brooks. Our final committee report today will be given by Regent John McCall, Chair of Finance and Administration. Will you please give us your report, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Administration Committee met yesterday, November 30th, 2022, and unanimously approved the following 10 action items for submission on the board's consent docket agenda for final board approval today as follows. 1, approval is requested to delegate authority to the Chancellor to negotiate and execute contracts exceeding $1 million for the purchase of goods or services, excluding construction contracts at the University of Houston system. 2, approval is requested to delegate authority to the Chancellor to negotiate and execute construction contracts exceeding $1 million for projects at the University of Houston system. 3, approval is requested to establish a graduate program deposit fee at the University of Houston. 4, approval is requested to delegate authority to the Chancellor to negotiate and execute contracts for design and construction, the hub, located in the Central District at the University of Houston. 5, approval is requested to delegate authority to the Chancellor to negotiate and execute contracts for the design and renovation of Bayou Building located at the University of Houston Clear Lake. 6, approval is requested to delegate authority to the Chancellor to negotiate and execute contracts for design and expansion and renovation of the Welcome Center building and one main building located at the University of Houston downtown. 7, approval is requested to delegate authority to the Chancellor to negotiate and execute contracts for the design and construction to the new Innovation Hub building located at the University of Houston. 8, approval is requested to delegate authority to the Chancellor to negotiate and execute contracts for the design and construction of the new Academic Building 2 at the University of Houston at Sugar Land location. 9, approval is requested to delegate authority to the Chancellor to negotiate and execute contracts for the design and construction to the renovations to the Texas Medical Center building located at the University of Houston Texas Medical Center building. And 10, approval is requested for the annual review of the University of Houston System Board of Regents Finance and Administration Committee Charter. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my committee report.
Thank you, Regent McCall, for your great leadership with this so important committee who has been so busy over the last quarter getting all of this done. Pursuant to Board Bylaw 6.9, does any regent wish to request that an individual item be removed from the board's consent docket agenda and addressed by the full board for further discussion? If not, may I hear a motion to approve all items as presented in each of the committee reports? Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All items listed under the various committee reports consent docket agendas have been approved by the full board. We'll now move to section 4 listed on your agenda, committee report items not addressed in the consent docket but requiring final approval today. There were no items brought forward from the various committees today requiring final board approval. Next on our agenda, section 5, additional board agenda items to be presented before the full board. Review of legislative agenda priorities, University of Houston system is the next item to be presented for the board. For information, Mr. Jason Smith will update us on what's going to happen this legislative session.
Good morning. So we have a, I would say, aggressive agenda ahead of us here in a very important session. That happens when you have significant revenues to work with. Of course, with the $27 billion surplus, probably more than that, maybe 35, could be $40 billion surplus. You know, lots of asks out there from higher ed and from others. So we'll be very, very active, and I think we already have been very active talking to legislators as we move towards the session. So let's see if I can get this to work for me. It's just right and left. Okay, there we go. So just a quick overview on the session. I would say, you know, we have a stability in leadership after this election. Our governor and lieutenant governor were reelected. The speaker is likely to be reelected. There is some opposition from some members of the House right now, but for my money, I'd put it on the speaker to be reelected. We have 29 new members of the House, 5 new members of the Senate. That's a lot of turnover. So, and that's what happens when you have a redistricting session. Lots of folks decide to retire, and so lots of new membership. So there's lots of education that has to be done with these new members. We'll have the same appropriations chair, assuming the speaker is reelected, Chairman Bonin from the Houston region, and then Senator Huffman, also from the Houston region, has been appointed Senate Finance Chair by our Lieutenant Governor. And then Senator Creighton from Conroe, he will continue to be in charge of higher education in the Senate. They've actually combined the education and higher education committees again this session. So higher education will be within the education committee. And then the chair of the higher ed committee in the House retired, so we'll have a new higher ed chair.
They never do that.
Lots of legislation already filed, 1,100 bills as of yesterday. Of course, members have until March 10th to file general state bills. And we're already tracking about 50 higher education, general government-related bills. With, you know, in the past, we've tracked about 400 bills every session. Next slide, if I can get it. There we go. So just generally, you know, we work with our colleagues at the other systems to have priorities for all of higher education, always investment in formula funding, We're asking for an increase in that. We need to, with the cost of inflation, there needs to be more than just an investment in getting back to into enrollment growth. That's not going to do it for our universities, particularly some universities that have struggled after the pandemic. UHV, I think, is down 17% in SCH. Getting back to just enrollment growth is going to be devastating for our regional universities. So we'll be fighting very hard on that. Maintaining our research funding and actually paying for some backlog, particularly for TRIP funding. There's a huge backlog. I think it's like $200 million, and half of that is owed to the University of Houston over several years. So that's going to be a priority. Financial aid, Texas grants over the years, investment in Texas grants, which is what it's a grant program that our low and middle income students use to pay for higher education in the state, has been eroded. At this point, only 68% of eligible students in our state are covered with the funding from Texas grants. That's about a $248 million shortfall to fund all of the students who are eligible for Texas grants. Is very important for low and middle income students. Hazelwood, we've talked about Hazelwood for a long time. At this point, 87% of the cost of Hazelwood statewide is not covered. And that's about a $276 million statewide that our universities are not being covered for that program. And that's the total, yeah. That includes legacy and former military. Big numbers. And then we continue to see a shortfall in the what we call HEGI, that's the Higher Education Group Employees Insurance. Raymond can talk about that, but that's starting to be a big hit on our universities as well. Okay. So priorities for our system. We've, as I said, our agenda is very aggressive. We have a request to fund an endowment for the University of Houston. We all know about that, to support our goal of becoming a top 50 public university, but also for our 3 regional universities in the system. CREW funding was a bill that was passed last session, which provides performance-based funding for those 3 universities and the other 24 regional universities throughout the state. The state only funded about 20 million of the 80 million that was set forth in that legislation. So we're asking for the additional money to cover that. That's, we think, is very transformative for our 3 regional universities to support their student success initiatives. We're talking academic counselors, mental health counselors, the types of wraparound services that our students need to be successful. Excuse me. And then for Clear Lake and Victoria, we've been fighting for a long time on supporting our expansion funding that we got. We continue to fight every session to make sure that's included in the budget. What we've asked for now is that for Clear Lake and Victoria, those funds be converted to institutional enhancement so that we don't have to fight for them every session. We had discussions yesterday about when Dr. Walker and Dr. Blanchard talked about their plans for the universities and building new facilities. We do have additional requests this session for CCAPs. These projects that we've requested are actually ones we requested last session and those parts that did not get funded. I will say we are the only system that actually, us and Texas Tech actually are the only 2 systems that requested additional CCAPs this session, but given where we are financially and the huge needs we have for facilities on our university campuses. We thought this was the right way to go. We hope if there are additional funds, we can help fund those projects. And then we have a special item request for the system. We were approached by HISD, Houston ISD, and wanting to find a way to help develop a teacher pipeline program at our system. And what we've asked for is $2 million, a $2 million commitment from the state that would be combined then with a commitment from HISD that would then pay for 60 students every cohort in teacher prep that would then be required to go into HISD for up to 5 years. So we think we're using this program to try to help this teacher shortfall we see and be a solution for K through 12. For the University of Houston, there was a $50 million institutional enhancement that was placed in the budget last October, and that was paid for by the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds. We are asking for that $50 million appropriation to be included as a permanent item in the budget this session. That's very important. We've used those monies to invest in our research portfolio at the University of Houston. This is a big part of achieving this top 50 goal of ours. We've had for several sessions what we call the Partnership for Multicultural Success. This money is $2.5 million already that we have. We've asked for additional funds to match that, to expand those programs that support the different programs throughout the academic programs throughout the university that are focused on different cultural successes for our students. And then finally, our Small Business Development Center continues to do great work in our region, but they're falling behind. They don't have the funds to keep up with the needs. They've been a huge part of recovery from hurricanes, from pandemic, supporting small businesses. They do great work, and we're asking for additional money to support the SBDC. And then for downtown Clear Lake in Victoria, downtown has gone through a strategic plan after Dr. Blanchard came to the university very successfully, and the university is asking for $22 million to support that strategic plan. Lots of those items are about supporting student success, and we're going to be very aggressive at trying to draw some dollars down to support them for those plans. Clear Lake has a very successful Center for Autism and Development Disabilities Center, and we've asked for additional funds to support that endeavor so that we can alleviate the waiting list for that program, and so they can serve more people throughout our region. And then Victoria, as I mentioned, being down 17%, partially, most importantly, from the COVID-19 pandemic. We've asked for hold harmless for that university, $7 million, and then they'd like to expand their practice center, or the community practice center for mental health in the Victoria and the Katy region. It's an academic program, but it also serves the public, the community with that. So I think that's it. Yes. Okay.
All right.
Questions?
We'll be busy.
It will be the most interesting session that I can ever remember, because there's so much money available because of COVID. because our sales tax is just so unbelievably good. It'll be very interesting.
Thank you for pumping some money into that.
Any questions?
How does that work? I mean, there's a rainy day fund, right?
Right?
And you mentioned something yesterday, there's only so much that can be capped at.
Just
I
like
think the
you-
number is capped at $14.5 billion. Once it hits that cap, then the money starts flowing back into revenues, general revenues.
And then you can only spend like 10% even over the budget. There's all kind of crazy rules.
Right.
But the money's still there, so it's just kind of, it's not gapped the way we would understand it.
Yeah, they actually, the Legislative Budget Board yesterday sent a revenue cap, which is an increase of 13.5 approximately percent higher than it was last session, which is actually about 13 or 14 billion dollars. In order to go above that, they have to have a very high level, I think it's 4/5, I think, vote to break that cap right now.
Which I don't think will happen.
And they're obviously not, they never spend all of the rainy day fund too.
You know, and I think the chancellor's done a great job of making leadership understand that we only have 2 top 50 universities in the state of Texas compared to California, who I believe has 6. 7. I mean, University of California, Davidson, I believe, is even a top 50. It's crazy. And it's kind of an embarrassment for the state of Texas. And so that's why we've really partnered up with Texas Tech and saying, you know, we're the next 2 public universities that should be a part of this. Texas needs at least 4 universities in the top 50 in the United States. Anything you want to add to that?
Well, we used to have the research portfolio less than 100 million. Then we went to the legislature in 2009, 2011, requesting to create some platform so that we can start building our research infrastructure. Now the 2 universities, we have crossed 200 million. Texas Tech is just at the edge of crossing it. So we too are at that point where we have gone to the next milestone. Other institutions are still building to that. So I think it's time that Texas thinks about, okay, these 2 have gone to 200 million. How do we raise their research profile from 200 million to 400 million? And in order to do that, you have to do things differently, for which you really need a predictable investment pool. I could give examples of that, which I won't go here, but that is the reason why we are asking that these 2 institutions, there's a logical reason. We have reached the next milestone.
Any more questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Jason. Look forward to working with you diligently over the next 7 to 8 months. That item was presented for information only. The next item presented today is report on intercollegiate athletics by our University of Houston VP of Athletics, Athletic Director Chris Pesman, our esteemed Athletic Director, leader of the #1 team in the country, the Houston Cougars basketball team, and that powerful 7-5 Cougar football team.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? Thank you for having me this morning. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Chairman, for that. Nothing like a warm welcome. Thank you. We'll see if I can stay on consistent with the previous presenters on speed or timing, but we'll go through this. I thought I'd reset the deck and
We
just,
understand, though, that we don't mind. Sports is like religion, so you always get more time.
It's okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll take it. I thought I'd share with this group our mission statement and kind of our vision statement, and just kind of reset the table about what we're about and what we're trying to achieve. I won't read everything, but I'll just hit the high points. Again, our vision is to be the best. I know that's a broad statement, but that's what we're seeking to achieve in each and every category, from student success to athletic success to the way we present ourselves on game day. Next is our mission, which is building champions for life, which I feel like we're making significant progress with, as we particularly emphasize academic progress rate and our graduation rates of our student athletes. Our focus is on student athlete success, which ties into the prior comment. And then our goals continue to be academic success, student-athlete development, conference positioning, which will continue as we work through this transition because there's a lot of moving parts. Football and basketball success, which is driven around the revenue that those produce, which gives us the opportunity to reinvest that money in other ways. Revenue generation and fan attendance, continuing to try to be creative about the way we attack revenue opportunities for our athletic department. Facility enhancements, which tie back into the prior comment, because as we continue to enhance facilities and find new revenue opportunities, and continue to invest in our programs as we prepare for this transition to the Big 12. And last, and most importantly, I think as much as anything, is transparency and integrity, which I feel like we continue to try to put our best foot forward and be as open book as possible and answer any questions and never try to, hide it. So we thought we'd also highlight our student athletes, who they are and where they come from. I thought this was interesting. One of the impacts of COVID is what we call the COVID year. The NCAA basically gave every student athlete an extra year of eligibility. Typically, you'd see these buckets in 20% increments, as opposed to what you see with freshmen, appreciably 25% increments, with freshmen at 24%, sophomores at 24%, sophomores or juniors at 22%, and seniors at 20%. What's interesting about this also, I apologize, missed my slide there. We have 412 student athletes is our cohort, and of this, we have 11 in graduate programs and in 11 different graduate programs, and this represents 55 different undergraduate programs. Most on here are in exercise science, which you can imagine, undecided, which is principally our freshmen, but at the graduate programs, global retail, management, leadership, principally the technology degrees, is where most of our student athletes have landed in the graduate programs. Where do our kids come from? 31 different states, 31 different countries, so we're really all over the place. The vast majority of our student athletes come from Texas, leading way about 60%, which is 248 student athletes. The next group is California, which is actually a little bit shift in our demographic. Not a lot, obviously, you're talking about 21 kids, but principally we've been the Gulf Coast primarily, but we've seen a little bit of a creep of kids looking at us from California as we expand our footprint. This is our Student Athlete Advisory Committee. This is representatives from each of our sports programs, at least 2 kids from each program. They represent their teams, coaches, and administration. This is a group that we go to provide feedback of what we're doing and things that are working or things that aren't working. This is who we use as our sounding board. It's a very active group in leading, learning, and community engagement. This is the group that works on putting our student athletes in the local community in ways that they can perform outreach activities. Part of our outreach activities and part of what we continue to work on in the athletic department is Cougs All In. This was an initiative that was born out of our social efforts coming out of the pandemic, a lot of things that flared up. But we created an outreach called Cougs All In, which is our diversity and inclusion effort. Its primary goal is awareness and inclusion. It's also a group that provides feedback to me and to our executive leadership team. And it's been very well received in a very short period of time. Their current objectives remain training our student athletes and coaches and staff in diversity and inclusion efforts. We have a Broken Table series, which is led by our FCA representative, Joe Thompson, who brings together our student athletes to talk about difficult subjects, provide student athletes a civic day. It's interesting, coming out of the George Floyd social issues, obviously our student athletes were very active at voting, so we created a civic day. Part of our NCAA requirement as well is we created a civic day around the midterm elections where our student athletes are able to take that day off and go vote. We also work on year-round mental health outreach and support. That's been a very large point of emphasis, and continue to facilitate off-campus activities. Academic success. Whoa. You guys can help me there? There we go. Thank you. These are student athletes that graduated this last year. We had 85 seniors. 82 of those graduated, 96.4% graduation rate. The 3 student athletes that didn't graduate were student athletes that left early to turn pro. That's a number that we're very proud of. Anything above 80% at this level is very significant, and we continue to push that 90% and higher effort, and we won't rest until we get to 100. And actually, I think that's a very real possibility. This is a lot of information. I'm not going to expect you to read it, but the high points are this. There we go. I'm sorry. This last fall, and I apologize, this is fall of 21. We had a 3.04 GPA for our 412 student athletes, a spring GPA of 3.02, 100 on the fall dean's list, and 94 on the spring dean's list. APR, that 6 number, is the academic progress rate. It's a metric that the NCAA uses to track graduation rates by team. We had 6 teams with perfect scores, and all of our teams are the NCAA minimum's 930. We're well above that in all our programs and in a very healthy financial or academic footing. The next slide, these are our student athletes that made the American Athletic Conference all academic teams. So you have to be above 3.0 and have athletic success. We had 173 student athletes that made the American Conference academic all academic team. That's a mouthful, so I apologize. Again, that's almost 50% of our student athletes achieved American Conference academic all conference recognition. Athletic success. Again, this is fall of 21, pardon me, and spring of 22. There we go. For the 7th year in a row, we had 4 teams at least win conference championships. Men and women's outdoor track and field, obviously men's basketball and swimming. Swimming in particular, we're especially proud of. We had a new coach, took over a new program, and for the 5th year in a row, they won the American Conference Swimming and Diving Championships. So we've got a lot of athletic success with our teams that continues to occur. We've got 6 teams that made the postseason and qualified for the postseason. Obviously football, swimming, cross country, basketball, women's cross country, women's basketball, men's golf, women's track and field, men's indoor track and field, women's golf, men's outdoor track and field, and women's outdoor track and field. So all of our sports programs were placing teams or individuals in postseason competition with the NCAA, which is a very healthy number for us. These were student athletes that that were all Americans. We had 16 student athletes that were recognized for all American awards, and we had, 16 of those were all Americans, pardon me. The next slide, again, a lot of information, but the takeaway from this is we had 4 of our coaching staffs that were recognized as Coach of the Year or Coaching Staffs of the Year in the American, which, again, out of 17 programs is a very healthy number. And the last is 15 of our 17 sports had all conference honorees. Again, so we continue to have kids that are achieving at a higher level compared to their peers, and look forward to continuing that as we progress through this year. That's it. Any questions?
Yes. Next year, when you make this presentation, how many championships?
Next year? So we're in that season right now, so
Well, let's just say the year after next.
first year in the Big 12.
Why don't you explain to everybody how difficult or how easy
Yeah.
the adjustment's going to be in all sports?
Yeah, let's just be candid. As we transition from the American and the Big 12, the competition steps up significantly. It's going to be a push. I would tell you the program that's best prepared for that transition is men's basketball. I mean, just set aside the fact that we're ranked #1 in the country right now, but that program, the infrastructure, the support staff, all those things that are in place is the program that's most ready to make that transition. Across the board, it's an uphill climb for us. I think there's spots where we'll have success, track and field. We're used to competing nationally, but the rest of our sports, baseball, softball, sports like that, we're going to have a lift of work that has to occur as we continue to raise our ability to recruit and ability to compete at that level. And you got to remember, one-off games, you can get up for those games, but game after game, when you go from a Wednesday to a Saturday in basketball, competing at that level and at a higher level, those are a lot more harder to get on long win streaks. So it's going to be a challenge for us as we make this transition competitively. But it is something that we believe in the first 3 to 5 years, once we get our feet underneath us, that we can actively make that transition. But the first 1 to 2 years, we're ready to, it's going to be an uphill climb.
Even for basketball, playing, once and twice a week against top 15 competition is just,
Yeah, I mean, the idea that undefeated seasons, things like that are very special and very rare. I mean, we'll use basketball example. You're going to go from a Wednesday game playing Texas Tech to a Saturday game playing Kansas. And that level of competition, game after game, stacked without, a break, it's fatiguing mentally and physically. So that's where the significance of the competition that we're going to face week in, week out, that's the grind of it, and that's what we have to build up to. Any other questions?
I know y'all have questions. This is why he's here.
Well, Chris, we talked, you mentioned the experience of our fans and even the visitors.
Yep.
When you come to our campus in a Big 12 environment. The media
Yeah.
hype, everything goes up a whole level. Where do you see the biggest challenges for us over the next,
Yeah, I think,
as we get ready for that?
well, and as I've talked to the
TCU, right? I guess
Sure.
that would be the first game.
Yeah, well, that's not out there
Wait a minute,
yet.
other than Cullen Boulevard
Yeah.
being fixed, I guess, right?
We're going from look, this isn't, it's just the way it's been. When you go to other cities, whether it's Waco or Lubbock, those are community events. Those are smaller communities, so they're able to embrace those sporting events in a broader fashion. And that's something that we have to start imparting upon our civic leaders and the university, that this is not just an athletics event, this is a university and community event. That broadens into when you leave and you're going down 45 and you're approaching the campus, how are you getting there? And you have to be prepared for what's coming, which is multiple sellouts, particularly the level of profile that we're going to experience in the first year. We're not talking about, onesies. We're talking about week after week with the potential to have, significantly higher attendance rates. And so what we're focused on right now is how do we get people to the university? This is just what we deal with. You come in, you go down Scott Street, you got light rail. You come in Cullen, we're still under construction. So that means how do we articulate to those people that are coming here for the first time, hey, you got to go to Spur 5, park in a parking garage, and walk across campus. Those are problems that we haven't dealt with continually to this point, but that is what our future holds for us. And so we have to be prepared to how do we share that information, how do we force that information to people so they know how to get to the university. And I'm starting from the macro on the outside looking in, because that's the experience that people are going to have and the perception people are going to have of the university when they come to us. So we have to do everything we can to communicate all those things now in advance, so that way when they show up, they have the best possible experience that they can have. And to Regent Moore's point, everything that we are doing, we have to elevate. Our game day experience, the way we present ourselves, all of those things. And it starts with athletics first, but again, this becomes more not an athletics event, it's a community event. And we're meeting with the Sports Authority, we're meeting with the representatives from the City of Houston, Transtar, Metro, TxDOT, to start preparing for this transition. But it's going to be a group effort. So I'll be calling and looking for people that can help connect us with the right people to help move the needle as we prepare for this transition. Yes, sir.
Hey, Chris, just on football revenue, knowing that most of the Big 12 partners have sellouts, going to a
Yep.
Baylor game or Tech or TCU, Texas. So what analytics do we use on ticket pricing, knowing that a large percentage of our crowds are going to be those fans who are used to paying, I assume, a higher
Yep.
price in their home stadium?
Yes.
Sounds like an opportunity, I
Yep.
would assume, at least for the opposition's fans. I'm not sure about ours. So
Yeah,
how do we
so-
figure all that out?
Yeah, we are aggressively pricing even more so, pricing our ticket prices, but it's a little bit of a complicated answer. Yeah, so we've pulled all the data from all of our Big 12 peers. It's interesting, it's over 200 different pricing categories, so how do we blend all that and get apples to apples? We're working with an outside group, Endeavor, we will be. We're working through finalizing the agreement to help with us with, again, just a third party validating our pricing and what we're looking at. And it's a combination between season, mini plans, and then the single game. The single game pricing, to your point, is where you get the most opportunity for uplift.
Right.
And how do we price that and use dynamic pricing as those games roll out to take advantage of the market.
We also, you have to remember though, only have 40,000 football seats and 7,000?
7,100.
7,100 in the Fertitta Center. So you got to look at that. So when you look at pricing compared to other schools, you can't just look at, oh, our price, because those extra 20,000 seats for football or those extra 2,000 or 3,000 seats in basketball have a huge effect.
Yeah.
So we should get tight compression. And people are going to be surprised at how our pricing's going up, but you've got to look at the level of competition. I mean, every home game is an exciting game. I mean, it's just different.
Yeah, once we're able to announce officially the schedule and the scheduling matrix here in the next week, 2 weeks, I mean, people will understand what we're talking about. Next year's home schedule is as good as we could ever hope for.
Well,
Now-
some of those names have already leaked out.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if one
it's-
of the top 4 teams in the country is coming here, that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's everything we'd hoped for, and in the investment the university's made to get us to this point, this is what we've been building towards, and what we are looking at for next fall is all we wanted for the last 20-something years since we got left out, and we got to take advantage of it. This is our chance. We got one shot at it. This is it.
But fans need to realize, and this is where Regents need to be supportive of, it is not going to be easy. It takes a few years to build up your recruiting in this conference. You're dealing with a different caliber of athlete in the Big 12. The Big 12 exceeds in so many different sports.
Yeah.
Even, throughout the football season, you have 5 and 6 teams out of your top 25, in the Big 12. I mean, it's amazing. There's no weak sister. There's even the SEC has weak sisters. Our worst teams are Iowa State and who even Kansas.
And Iowa
okay?
State had the best defense in
Right,
football
right.
going into
And-
that
and
last game.
That's what's unusual
Yeah.
about the Big 12 is nobody's weak in almost every sport, in the major sports,
That's
right, Chris?
That's exactly right.
So Chris,
I mean,
this may be a follow-up question and maybe too complicated, but basketball, we have a small arena.
Yeah.
I think we have season tickets sold out now.
Yes.
What percent, and you look at Tech and they're sold out, what percentage of visiting tickets do those teams make available?
Yeah, don't quote me on this because the Big 12 rules we're going through right now, but it's like 50 tickets for the visiting team. It's not much.
Yeah.
So we've got 7,100 seats.
More
That's about-
football opportunity than
Yeah,
basketball.
but no, but what happens is that our fans will go online
Yeah.
and sell them to Texas fans and Kansas fans and Baylor fans.
Yeah.
You, when you're sitting in, this is gonna disappoint you, but this happens all over the professional football leagues.
It happens in the Dallas Cowboy games. They sell
Yes,
their
I mean, it
tickets.
happens at a Houston Rocket game
Yeah.
when the LA Lakers play,
Yeah.
and that all of a sudden somebody makes a basket and you say, wait, what team made the basket?
Yeah.
When you're gonna see that a lot here because we're not in a small college town.
But I'm thinking of,
You're in the city of Houston where there's as many Texas graduates and Tech graduates and Baylor graduates. I mean, I've never been where I'm sitting around a group of people and somebody didn't go to Baylor. It's amazing, the Baylor graduates and TCU graduates. So it isn't going to be like it is today because we're in Houston, Texas, and those are such major schools.
so that's not a revenue opportunity for us then. That's our fans making money on tickets.
That's correct.
So,
That's
yeah.
just life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In basketball, football, there's lots
More
of.
reason to raise the rates.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's the opportunity it affords us,
Yeah.
and that's what we have to.
Because they will be selling their tickets.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Chris, do you see, so just in terms of other opportunities with the Big 12 and the city of Houston, branding opportunities for corporate, our corporate community? I mean, they're all of a sudden now they have something of value to maybe put their brand on that's going to get more media attention and more attention from the 40,000 that are sitting in the football stadium versus what we have.
Yeah, our sponsor opportunities are significant. We're already seeing, we've got somebody that's working specifically on pure corporate philanthropic giving, and He's already in 6 months, those are long lead sales, those are 18 months beyond. And in 6 months, he's done 5 deals that are all 7 figures. And energy company, some others that we'll talk about later that are significant, that were never open to us, never even considered. And to that same point, we're exploring ways that we can ensure that we maximize our sponsorship opportunities. That's an area where we're light and have some real opportunity for upside. And as we look at facility naming rights, things like that, those are some very active conversations that we're having that are bearing fruit. So not ready to announce anything yet. We're not that far along, but hopefully here in short order. But the way the market's opened up, obviously NIL is a new world. That's an area where we're seeing a lot of traction, specific for men's basketball because of the profile they have right now. But the NIL money that's come in for basketball has all been people that are largely unaffiliated, directly unaffiliated with the university that are using our student athletes to help market their companies. And there's over $1.5 million raised for men's basketball right now for NIL. And that's all been done in 4 months, which is very healthy. And we got a lot more work to do. That's a space that we are tracking in that we got to improve significantly. That's something that there's a lot of work and money, and frankly, resources that we got to find and invest in. We can't actively participate in it because we're prohibited by state law, but it is something that has to be managed and has to be accounted for.
We'll get into some things later.
Okay?
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This item was presented for information only and requires no action by the board. Next on our agenda is approval of the current University of Houston System Board of Regents calendar for the year 23-24. Ms. Cornell, Vice Chancellor for Legal Affairs and our General Counsel, will you present this item?
You'll see up there your fiscal year,
Bless you.
Bless you.
pardon me? There's your schedule.
Well, we don't see it.
Your eyes are better than mine.
November 16th, 2023, February 22nd, 2024, May 16th, 2024, August 22nd of 2024.
And these are,
Board meeting?
Yes.
Oh, can you go back to that?
if we have any huge conflicts,
Can she send those to us?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
it'd be
send
nice.
that to you
When's that?
once you approve them.
February.
Yes.
Gotta get it on.
If we approve it.
Right.
February 22nd? November 16th, 23.
I don't think
What?
their dates will work with you. Did we send ahead of time the dates to everybody? And
Yes.
making sure it was okay on
We
people's
do
calendars?
as best we can to do preliminary review with your staff to make sure these are good dates.
It's not next year, this is the year after, is that what I'm looking at?
This is 23.
and 24,
And 24, okay.
yes. We like to stay ahead of it.
That way we can put it on your calendar and you can't,
It's,
you will know it's there.
it's right here on your board package on page 150 of your board material. This whole slide is here.
We'll send you
Yeah.
that copy.
Oh, it's page 150.
Need a vote.
It's the last page of the whole deal.
All right. What else do you have to present to us, Ms. Cornell?
Pardon me?
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
You were very quick
I
today.
work very hard.
All right,
She has no drama.
not yet.
Nothing going on.
All right. Do we need to approve that?
Yes, you do.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the item as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The calendar for 23-24 is hereby approved. We'll now move to Section 6 on your agenda is the Chancellor's Report. Dr. Couture, will you please give us your report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The report copy is in front of you. I will highlight a few things, but it's always such a delight to bring few items to you from University of Houston system as to what's happening, because a lot of great things are happening on our campuses and universities. So first of all, the graduation time is coming, and preliminary data shows that during the upcoming fall 2022 commencement ceremony, the UH system will award almost 7,000 degrees. This is an approximate 3.1% increase compared to the total number of degrees awarded during the last fall semester. From University of Houston system, we received a $1 million grant, which is part of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board's initiative to develop and deliver an innovative micro-credentialing program to train both current and aspiring energy professionals in upstream energy data analytics. So 2 years ago, realizing that there were several layoffs in the industry in Houston, we started micro-credentialing program. Just to tell you what that is, instead of a 45-hour one semester, micro-credential is just for 15 hours of work. And people can enroll because sometimes they're afraid to, they don't want to really commit to a long-term degree program or certificate program. So this is just a 15 hours in the hottest fields in the market: data analytics, cybersecurity, energy transition. And once you finish your 15 credits, you get a badge or a micro-credential. You can now stack it with the next micro-credential, that's another 15 hours, and then a next one with the 15 if you want. And this way you can tailor-make your own skill set. Once you get 45 hours together, you can also get a course credit then, and you can build on it to actually toward a certificate if you want to. So it's at your own pace, in your own field. And this has been so popular, the minute we open, they all get filled. We have so far awarded 2,500 micro-credentials in the three fields that I talked about: data analytics, energy transition, and cybersecurity. For the University of Houston, for the 4th consecutive year, the Sylvia and Melvin Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship in the C.T. Bauer College of Business has been named #1 undergraduate entrepreneurship program in the United States. This is by the Princeton Review that does it every year. And you know, it's really nice to see we are ranked #1 in basketball. We're also ranked #1 in entrepreneurship program. Of course, we are ranked 1 in the state of Texas in terms of our intellectual property revenue that comes from Professor's Technologies. Between August and October, UH received a total of 11 awards over $1 million. These are research awards, totaling over $26.8 million. What I wanted to point out that the usual suspects are engineering and natural sciences, but I want you to know 3 of these awards, which is over $1 million awards, they came in the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, and 3 of them came also in College of Optometry. A lot of research going on across different colleges. Entrepreneurship and distinguished alumnus, Brij Agrawal and his wife, who happens to be Regent Agrawal's nephew as well, they pledged $1 million for manufacturing laboratory equipment at the College of Technology in Sugar Land. In recognition, the auditorium now will be called the Brij and Sunita Agrawal Auditorium. Houston Rise is our campaign to make sure that we can financially at least be prepared and transition into the Big 12. And it is $150 million campaign, and so far we have raised over $45 million toward that campaign. Almost $40 million of that is earmarked for the Football Operations Center. For the first time since 1983, as you know, the men's basketball program is ranked #1 in AP poll and in coaches poll. But not only that, Coach Sampson, he has won his 700th career game win, 200th win at one of our games, which was a season openers here at University of Houston. UH will be a part of history, serving as a host university when the NCAA Final Four tournament comes to Houston in 2023. Other than basketball, we have a very exciting volleyball team. That's women's volleyball. That's ranked #22. And that hasn't happened in a long while also. But interestingly, they are now competing in the NCAA post tournament. And they are, if you get an opportunity to watch, they are absolutely fascinating and exciting to watch. At University of Houston Clear Lake, in September, UH Clear Lake and Boeing signed a contract that enabled Boeing to offer engineering students entry-level employment experience and internships. The students will support multiple projects, including the International Space Station, the CST-100, a Starliner commercial crew program, and the Space Launch System. UH Clear Lake also received a $589,000 grant to create a software solution to understand better the needs and issues faced by students of color in UH Clear Lake educator preparation programs. The long-term objective of the initiative is to help UH Clear Lake, a Hispanic serving institution, train and support more diverse teacher candidates. UH Clear Lake is a designated voter-friendly campus. To achieve the voter-friendly campus designation, a campus has to show a 60 to 68% voting rate. The Houston Chronicle recently reported that after over 7 days of early voting, university polling locations in Harris County, where only one location achieved that and everybody else was lagging, and that was the University of Houston Clear Lake. They're doing a tremendous job in getting voters there and promoting it, educating people, raising voter awareness, and engaging them in the process. University of Houston Downtown received its first Cancer Prevention and Research Institute of Texas grant, and that totaled almost $1 million over 3 years. In collaboration with the University of Texas at Austin, UT Health San Antonio, and 2 federally qualified health center systems across 7 Texas counties, the grant is focused on primary prevention efforts to reduce HPV-related cancer disparities, specifically for those who reside in medically underserved areas and Houston professional shortage areas in Texas. Now let's talk about mariachi band. At PNC Stadium before the final game of the Houston Dynamo season against the LA Galaxy, UHD's mariachi Los Camines went head-to-head against Rice's mariachi Luna Lena to determine the best college mariachi band in the city. The audience selected, of course, Mariachi Los Caminos as the winning and the best band. The band sang the national anthem before the game and performed a song at the halftime. The C.T. Bauer Foundation has now funded 4 cohorts of Ted Bauer Undergraduate Business Scholarship at UH Downtown's Davies College of Business. This totals now $2 million, and this funding, the opportunity, the scholarships are having an impact on more than 150 students since fall of 2019. This gift represents a depth and breadth of impact like no other scholarship program at UH Downtown. UH Victoria, the accrediting body, which is known as the Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology, they recently gave accreditation to UH Victoria's College of Natural and Applied Sciences, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. A lot of access providing institutions, their programs may or may not have accreditation, but we aspire to have accreditation for all our programs across the system. This is a great achievement. The KT community will receive mental health assistance for free thanks to the new UHV Counseling Training Clinic. This new clinic will serve as an internship site for graduate students in the UHV Professional Counseling Program. Students under supervision by licensed faculty will offer counseling services to people in the community and gain practical experience. UHV's Jaguars, they are making their name in a very interesting way. Students attending UHV have a new tradition that highlights the values of the university's student body, known as the Jaguar Pillars. UHV's Jaguar Pillars were created by members of the Student Government Association and other students during the 2021-22 academic year. It is important to note because UHV is developing as a destination residential campus, and this tradition is new, but it has been an important exercise for them. Now, after a year of hard work and cooperation, the 5 pillars We know what they are, and they have been posted in the mural in a hallway inside UHV Jaguar House. So go UHV Jaguars. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all for the report.
Thank you, Madam Chancellor, for your remarks. Lot of good things happening. I'd now like to move to executive session. The Regents will now go into executive session pursuant to the sections of the Texas Government Code listed on page 4 of your agenda. Only those invited will remain in this room.
I think we just need Raymond and Dennis.
Being the Board of Regents meeting, do you have me? Are we on record? I'd like to reconvene the Board of Regents meeting. The Regents met in executive session and got a status report on different items. We conferred with our general counsel on legal and contract matters. There was no action taken in executive session. Dr. Couture, do you have any further comments? If there's no further business to come, this meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you all very much today.